Tonight on Rock Center, President Kennedy's intern. Meredith Vieira's first report for us is an exclusive and explosive interview with a woman who's gone public with a secret she never thought she'd share about her intimate time spent with President Kennedy inside the White House and elsewhere while she was still a teenager. Her book is now out, and tonight Mimi Alford speaks for the first time with Meredith Vieira.
It was exciting. It was glamorous. It was fun.
She was a 19-year-old college kid, an intern in the White House press office. He was the 45-year-old leader of the free world, and she was mesmerized.
I think I was under the aura.
She says it all began on just her fourth day at the White House, when the president gave her a private tour that ended in the First Lady's bedroom.
He then put his hands on my shoulders and sort of guided me down to the edge of the bed. And I think he may have even said to me, "Is this all right?" I didn't really know what was about to happen. And then what did happen was I lost my virginity right there.
What followed, she says, was an affair that lasted more than a year, with trysts at the White House, cross-country trips, and even calls summoning her back from college. You're in a limo, they're picking you up and you're taking you, I guess, to the airport to fly you to D.C., and you're doing your homework in the car knowing that you're being sent to Washington to have sex with the president, essentially.
I think that's probably partly what makes me feel sad.
Good evening and welcome to our live broadcast tonight, our first in our new time slot. And while we normally air a range of stories on different topics and from different correspondents over the course of the hour, this week we're devoting the broadcast to this one topic. It is the story just published of an affair between a college student and President John F. Kennedy. The author of this new book has chosen to tell us her story. In a moment, you'll learn why she waited 50 years to share intimate details about this martyred former president who still enjoys such a unique role in our modern history. And so tonight we bring you Meredith Vieira's exclusive interview with Mimi Alford, JFK's intern. It adds another surprising and disturbing layer to John F. Kennedy's presidential portrait.
I don't think what I did at 19, was bad. You know, the 19-year-old was all right. There was nothing wrong with me.
Then why are you crying?
I know. I'm remembering how enthusiastic I was and how much fun I was to be with. I wasn't after anything. I wasn't after a job. I was just a young girl.
Almost 50 years later, it's still difficult for 68-year-old Mimi Alford to talk about.
Most mornings, when I woke up, I thought, I don't want to get up and write this book. I want to hide under the covers.
In her new book, Once Upon a Secret, she reveals the explicit details of what she says was an 18-month affair with President John F. Kennedy. Her secret was first revealed in 2003, when historian Robert Dallek wrote in his biography of JFK that a tall, slender, beautiful White House intern was rumored to be among the president's many paramours. The revelation prompted inevitable comparisons to President Bill Clinton's scandalous relationship with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. But in 2003, Mimi wasn't offering details. She released a short statement and disappeared. When I saw this book, the first thing that I thought was, I don't even remember. I don't remember this story. You had really successfully sort of fallen off the face of the earth, so to speak. Why did you decide to expose yourself all over again, Mimi? Why write this book now?
It's not so much that I feel that I'm exposing myself. It's that I'm really unburdening myself. I think when you keep a secret and when you keep silent about something, you do it because you think it's keeping you safe. But in fact, it's deadly.
It all goes back to 1961, when Mimi, who was then Mimi Beardsley, was a senior at Miss Porter's boarding school for girls in Connecticut. As editor of the student newspaper, Mimi wanted to interview the school's most famous alumna, Jackie Kennedy. She didn't get the interview, but she did visit the White House, where she briefly met the president. And a year after her article was printed, she got a call, totally out of the blue, for a job she hadn't even applied for, an internship in the White House press office. Just finished your freshman year at Wheaton College, and you're going to be an intern at the White House. Tell me who that 19-year-old girl was.
She was serious, but she was also very enthusiastic, and she was sheltered a little bit. I'd been at a boarding school, but I was excited about this job. Seemed like a miracle. And I was a little bit wide-eyed, I think.
In the press secretary's office, Mimi, a former debutante who hailed from a socially prominent New Jersey family, was assigned to answer phones, rip news wires, and file press photos.
There was one point when
Parts of her story are impossible to confirm because the people involved are no longer alive. But Mimi says it all began on her 4th day on the job when she got a call from Dave Powers, an aide so close to the president he was known as the first friend.
He said, a group of us are going to have a swim at lunchtime. Would you like to join us? And I thought, well, it was sort of a little bit odd to be swimming in the middle of the day at work. Where's the pool? I mean, I didn't even know the White House had a pool. And of course, I didn't have a bathing suit either. But he said, don't worry, they're bathing suits.
In the heated indoor pool, which was surrounded by beautiful murals of St. Croix, Mimi found 2 other young White House staffers, Priscilla Ware and Jill Cowan, who were playfully dubbed Fiddle and Faddle.
They were in the water, and Dave Powers escorted me in. Shortly after that, the president arrived. No one had said the president was going to join us, but he went and put on his trunks and came into the water.
So you find yourself, here you are, you're 19, 4 days into your internship at the White House, and you're in the swimming pool with the President of the United States.
I know. But it really didn't seem unnatural, just because everybody was friendly, and I went back to work afterward.
You just dried off and went back, and nobody blinked?
No, no one said anything.
Mimi would later learn that because of his bad back, the president swam almost daily in the warm pool. But that same day, she says she got another call from Dave Powers, this time inviting her to a gathering to welcome new staff upstairs in the White House residence.
And there was a pitcher of daiquiris on the coffee table, and Dave poured me one.
Had you ever had a daiquiri before?
No, I think it was good.
And then the president walks in.
And then the president arrived. He sat down, very relaxed, put his feet up on the coffee table, and sort of joined in on the conversations. Obviously, these were the people that he liked to relax with. And then there was I, which seemed a little odd, but I didn't think about it that much.
Mm-hmm. Until he singled you out.
The president came over to me and asked me if I'd like to take a tour of the second floor of the White House.
Next thing she knew, Mimi says the president was giving her a private tour of the rooms his wife had recently redecorated and shown off on television.
I loved living in this room. It's on the sunny side of the house, and one of Andrew Jackson's magnolia trees is right outside the window.
And the last room that we went into was a bedroom.
It was Jackie Kennedy's bedroom.
I learned later that it was Mrs. Kennedy's bedroom. It was blue, pale blue, I remember. I felt the president getting closer and closer to me. Looked me right in the eyes, and I actually, he then put his hands on my shoulders and sort of guided me down to the edge of the bed, sort of the corner of the bed. And I think he may have even said to me, is this all right? Are you okay? Is this okay? I don't really think I knew what he was talking about. What I felt was, is what okay? I didn't really know what was about to happen. And then what did happen was I lost my virginity right there. Then I think I went a little bit into shock. Not into painful shock, but just into just utter surprise.
Did he realize that you were a virgin?
I think he did, because he kept asking me if I was all right, and I was all right. There was not a lot of conversation.
Here you are, a young woman, you've never had sexual relations before, 19, by your own account, naive.
Yeah.
And you've just had sex with the President of the United States. How can you be all right?
I didn't start to cry. I wasn't hysterical. I clearly wanted to go home, and I did very quickly go home. But I didn't feel scared. Maybe that's a thing about shock. I don't know.
You didn't feel scared perhaps because you were in shock?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
perhaps.
You wrote that I wouldn't describe what happened that night as making love, but I wouldn't call it non-consensual either. You also say, he had maneuvered me swiftly and unexpectedly, and with such authority and strength that short of screaming, I doubt if I could have done anything to thwart his intentions, which almost makes it sound like you did feel you were somewhat overpowered.
Well, I think overpowered in the sense that he was the president. He was this unbelievably handsome man, 45 years old, not overpowered physically that someone had grabbed me and made me do something that I wasn't really willing to do, because I really think I was willing to do it.
Even though you point out in the book quite clearly that you were a young woman who had, I guess, only kissed a boy once in 8th grade up until the president, and not a seductress at all.
Not at all.
It would be more than a decade before Mimi quietly confided the details of that night to a handful of friends. You write that some people actually use the R word. They believe that the president raped you and that you should have been very upset about this. The fact that this man was so much older than you and took advantage of you.
Well, I don't consider it was rape. I don't. If I had said no, I think the president would have stopped. And that's, but I didn't. There was no coercion. It didn't feel coerced to me.
Sounds like you're letting him off the hook.
I don't think it's a hook. I don't think it's a hook. It's what it was.
What it was for her, Mimi writes, was fascination. So a few days later, when Dave Powers invited her for another lunchtime swim, she said yes. You could have said no. You chose yes. You'd had second thoughts, I'm sure.
I had just a little bit of second thoughts. Not enough to keep me from going back. I think I was under the aura.
And when Meredith's interview continues after a break, Mimi Alford recounts what she says was a long, secret relationship during which President Kennedy took some jaw-dropping risks.
You thought you were pregnant with the president's child.
Yeah.
Welcome back, and we continue now with our story. The Kennedy presidency lasted just 1,000 days, and yet the energy and vitality and excitement from that White House, what was later called Camelot, was such that it can still be felt today. But just out of public view, it seems the president was taking some incredible risks. Now Meredith Vieira continues her report.
I think we're privileged to play a part.
It was exciting. It was glamorous. It was fun.
She was a 19-year-old college kid, an intern in the White House press office.
As clearly and persuasively as I could.
He was the 45-year-old leader of the free world, and she was mesmerized.
I was sort of swept into this web.
He said, don't do it. Can't win. Bad year.
The handsome president, his charisma, his magnetism.
Mimi Alford, who was then Mimi Beardsley, says after losing her virginity to President Kennedy on her 4th day on the job, they began an affair, spending evenings together in the private residence as often as twice a week. You're 19, he's 45. What did you talk about?
Well, we didn't have a lot of time to talk. He was the president. What we talked about was certainly not world affairs. The president was very boyish and playful with me.
In her book, Mimi calls their sexual encounters varied and fun, describing the president as a sensualist who also enjoyed being completely silly, especially in the bathtub.
He had a collection of little yellow rubber ducks, and they were in the bathtub, and the rubber ducks became sort of part of the game.
What did you do with the rubber ducks?
Well, we had races with rubber ducks in the bathtub. He was not being president when he was with me.
No, I mean, he was definitely not being president. Well, one of your friends, I believe, commented on it after the fact. You didn't have an affair with the president. You had a play date.
It did seem a little bit like that. I think maybe I reminded him of a younger time in his life.
Mimi says the president taught her how to give him special hair treatments and how to cook his eggs.
We cooked in the kitchen. The president taught me how to cook scrambled eggs in a double boiler, because that's the way he liked them, yeah.
And as implausible as it seems today, sometimes she actually spent the night with him at the White House. Did you start to get the sense that people within the White House knew what was going on?
Secret Service might have known, but nobody ever talked to me about it.
But people would see you coming and going from the private quarters, no?
Well, I think Dave Powers clearly knew what was going on. I don't think other people really knew.